Imagine a town, once fractured by trivial disagreements, suddenly finding perfect, sinister harmony. Their target, you. Their unity wasn't born from noble ideals, but from a shared cowardice fear, fueled by envy, and a desperate desire to see you fall. What they couldn't grasp was this: when an entire town turns its back on one soul, that soul becomes unstoppable. They weren't just fighting you. They were fighting every force the universe had placed behind you. It's ironic, isn't it? So many of them, so few of you, yet they're the ones crumbling. This isn't coincidence, it's cosmic law. Energy doesn't lie. When a whole town directs its hate at one person and still loses, that's not mere failure. That's irrefutable proof of who you are, chosen one. There's a psychological term called collective narcissism, when a group needs to believe they're inherently better than everyone else. But when one person among them refuses to play small, refuses to shrink just to make them feel tall, that group panics. They no longer see you as a person, they see you as a threat to their carefully constructed illusion. So, they try to erase you, cancel you, destroy you. But what happens when the nobody they tried to bury starts growing roots through concrete? That's what you did. Their underestimation was your elevation. They didn't just plot your downfall in secret, they celebrated it. They toasted behind closed doors, shared smirks, and passed rumors like candy, some even convinced they were on a righteous crusade. But they were, unknowingly, building their own collapse, one lie at a time. They underestimated you, not because you were weak, but because you were silent. You didn't explain yourself. You didn't clap back at every insult. That silence terrified them. It made them talk louder, scheme harder, and dig their own graves deeper. You were never the villain. You were simply the mirror, reflecting everything they couldn't stand about themselves. The universe doesn't choose the loudest, the most connected, or the most popular. It chooses the real, the resilient, the ones who carry truth even when it costs them everything. That's why it chose you. Your enemies believed their numbers equaled power. But power without purpose is just noise. They were so loud they couldn't hear their own empire cracking beneath their feet. One by one, their alliances rotted. Friends turned on each other. Lies began to contradict. That same community that tried to exile you is now eating itself alive. They still don't understand. They thought this was about you, that you were the target. But you were the test. The moment the universe placed a chosen one in their midst, it watched how they'd respond. And they failed miserably. When they tried to bury you, they didn't realize you were a seed. Now you're growing stronger, wiser, unshakable. They can't stand the fact that after the sabotage, the lies, the isolation, the betrayal, you're still standing. More than that, you're rising. They had numbers, you had purpose. They had gossip, you had truth. They had control, you had alignment. And no matter how hard they tried, not one of them could stop the course of what was already written by the hands of the universe. They failed, chosen one. Not because they weren't strong enough, but because you were never theirs to defeat. The unveiling, how their tactics backfired. Are you ready to see just how deep this betrayal went, and how powerful you've truly become because of it? If that whole town couldn't break you at your lowest, imagine what happens when you rise. 1. They played dirty, but you had clean hands. They came at you with lies, schemes, and numbers. You met them with truth, and truth doesn't flinch. What truly rattled them wasn't your strength, intelligence, or resilience. It was your pure heart. That one thing they could never fake, copy, or kill. They ran campaigns of slander, whispered in corners, and recruited pawns, thinking they could corrupt or crush your edge. But your heart remained untouchable, unshaken. In a world full of masks, such purity is dangerous, even terrifying. You watched, listened, endured. You walked through their fire with bare feet and emerged cleaner than they ever were, not fighting for revenge, but standing in truth. And truth, no matter how deeply buried, always grows roots. They mocked your silence as weakness, giggling behind screens, convinced you'd break. They called you too sensitive, too emotional, too intense. They failed to understand that your sensitivity is your radar, your emotion your compass, and your intensity your power source. While they calculated traps, you were being forged, cut down to the bone, yes, but rebuilt in ways that made you indestructible. They had the crowd, you had the current of the universe. They clung to each other's lies. You had your clarity. That's why their numbers didn't matter. In the end, the storm always clears, and only the real ones are left standing. This was psychological warfare. They hit you with gaslighting, character assassination, and isolation. They rewrote history and told you to smile. They turned family into strangers and strangers into spies. Yet, with all their effort and hate, they failed miserably because you, chosen one, held your line. You felt the wrongness, saw the cracks in their stories, and asked questions no one else dared. That scared them. They could manipulate almost anyone, but not you. They brought illusion, you brought instinct. They called it paranoia. You called it pattern recognition. Every time they laughed, the universe took note. Every time they tried to humiliate you, the universe shifted gears. Your heart was your armor, not your weakness. A pure heart isn't naive or soft, it's aligned. It means clean hands, a clear conscience, and brutal self-awareness. When someone like you walks through hell with a heart that refuses to rot, that's not innocence, that's invincibility. They should have never made you explain yourself. They should have never pushed you to the edge. What lives on the edge of isolation is not a broken soul, it's a sharpened one. You've seen behind the curtain, and that knowledge is your sword. There were nights you questioned your sanity, days you wondered, what if they're right? That's the insidious nature of psychological warfare. But you didn't stay in that pit. You climbed out alone, wrestling your own doubt, choosing yourself over and over again. They know now. They feel your shift. You walk differently, talk differently. You don't need to shout your truth. They feel it when you enter the room. This burns them the most. You didn't become bitter or like them. You didn't go low, you went deep. Now you rise quietly, powerfully, untouchably. Your existence is a constant reminder of their failure. They handed you the blueprint of who not to be, and you built an empire from their rubble. So let them talk, squirm, and cling to their delusions. You survived an ambush from an entire town, and didn't just survive but transformed. You turned exile into evolution, betrayal into blueprint, pain into presence. The war they started has only one ending, and it doesn't end with you broken. It ends with you becoming undeniable. Ironic, isn't it? All that effort to bury you, and now they can't even look away. 2. They threw shadows, but you were the mirror. They tried to curse you with darkness, but all they did was expose their own. When whispers and sabotage weren't enough, some resorted to darker forces, thinking they could break you from the inside out. But they forgot, when you mess with energies beyond your control, you don't gain power, you get consequences. What they tried to throw at you came back swinging. They sat in dimly lit rooms, burning incense, soaking intentions in envy, repeating mantras of destruction, unaware that energy answers to alignment, not desperation. They cast shadows, but you, chosen one, were already made of light that doesn't flicker. You didn't just survive their attacks, you reflected them. They tried to hex what was already protected. That's not power, that's stupidity wrapped in incense smoke. They thought their rituals, curses, or energetic darts would quietly erode you. From the outside, you looked vulnerable. But inside, you were fortified, not by superstition or revenge, but by the pure alignment of heart and purpose. While they played with shadows, you walked in your truth, and truth is the one vibration darkness can never touch. They projected pain onto you with theatrical intensity. But pure energy doesn't absorb malice, it transforms it. That hate, hitting a heart that hasn't been poisoned, rebounded tenfold, hundredfold, returning to sender wrapped in every ounce of toxicity they poured into it. They're jumpy, sleepless, feeling watched even in empty rooms. The paranoia isn't just guilt, it's the very energies they summoned. When those energies found no foothold in your life, they returned to their source. You can't aim fire at someone covered in spiritual rain and not expect to burn your own house down. They used to scoff at the idea of energy. Now they're looking over their shoulders, questioning shadows, jumping at phantom sounds. When invisible forces meant to destroy you turn on you, fear becomes a constant companion. Why did they go so far? Because your light exposed their darkness. Your existence made them question their lies. Instead of choosing to grow, they chose to destroy. You became the canvas for their self-hatred. Your peace was too loud, your presence too unshakable. The more they failed, the darker they became. Imagine trying to punch a wall made of rubber. Every swing bounces back, stinging your own fist. That's what happened. They thought they were punching through you, but they were hitting their own reflection. They couldn't pierce your spirit, so now they bleed from wounds they carved with their own hands. They underestimated you because you didn't retaliate. Restraint isn't weakness. Silence isn't surrender. The most dangerous people don't fight dirty because they don't have to. They let the universe handle what petty hands try to sabotage. While they plotted, you healed. While they cursed, you grew. While they unraveled in their self, summoned chaos, you built an unshakable foundation. The harder they tried, the more they failed. Every spiritual bullet ricocheted back louder, stronger, messier. Now they can't sleep or trust each other. Paranoia eats them alive. Some are losing their grip on reality, others watch their lives collapse. Deep down they know. This is what happens when you attack someone who walks in universal alignment. This is what happens when you try to poison what never drank from your cup. You didn't flinch, not because you didn't feel the tension, but because you understood something they never will. Real protection doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be real. This isn't superstition. It's energy, it's balance. When the scales tip too far into hatred, the universe corrects it brutally. Their perceived power was borrowed darkness, and now the bill is due. You can't send out poison and pray for flowers. That's not karma, that's common sense. Let them spiral scramble, and pretend they're having a rough patch while every door slams shut in their face. Let them wonder why their luck turned. The answer is simple. They made war with a force that doesn't lose. The universe was never on their side. And the best part, you didn't have to lift a finger. You just had to exist. With a heart that refused to rot, a spirit that couldn't be bought, and eyes that saw through illusion. That's all it took. You were the test, chosen one. They failed spectacularly. Now you walk forward, not just protected, but witnessed, while they chase shadows they summoned on themselves. 3. When the puppeteer lost control. Your ex, the mastermind, the smooth, talking manipulator, believed they had every move mapped out, fantasizing about your crumble. They wanted not just control, but ownership of your story, your peace, your reputation, your identity. But when everything blew up in their face, something snapped. Now they're obsessed, not in love or hate, but profoundly obsessed. You live rent-free in their mind, not because you begged, but because they can't shake the memory of failing to destroy you. You became a symbol of their limits, the one thing they couldn't bend, the mirror that refused to flatter them. The more they tried to erase you, the clearer you became. They don't miss you. They miss the version of themselves that still believed they were in control. Imagine them now, alone in rooms filled with desperation and dollar-store mysticism, lighting candles, whispering your name, carving intentions into wax, hoping to undo cosmic justice. They dabbled in mirror magic, unaware that all mirrors reflect truth. Truth is what they've been running from. They thought they were casting spells on you, but they were amplifying their own madness. Every ritual didn't seal your fate. It bound them to the very darkness they tried to drag you into. Their energy didn't touch you, it turned on them. The universe doesn't honor manipulation, it only echoes intent. Why would someone go this far? Because your healing is their punishment. Every time you rise, they're forced to confront what they lost and, more painfully, why they lost it. You didn't play dirty. You didn't engage in their war. You didn't try to ruin them. And that's what truly eats them alive. The realization that even their dirtiest tactics couldn't dent your light. So now they're stuck, obsessed, haunted by a past that refuses to stay buried. The more they try to control it, the more it controls them. 4. They looked into the mirror and met the monster. Mirrors don't lie. They don't bend for convenience or flatter egos. A mirror always shows what is, not what someone pretends to be. So when your ex, the manipulator, the fraud, the spiritual amateur, began playing with mirror rituals to attack you, they didn't cast power, they cast their own reflection. And it terrified them. Night after night, lighting candles, whispering your name into a piece of glass, they thought they were sending waves of destruction. Instead, those rituals became windows, showing them exactly who they were beneath the lies, bitterness, filth, and cruelty. It wasn't magic. It was exposure, and it was brutal. The real curse is seeing yourself clearly when all you've ever sold is illusion. They thought they were clever, but that's not how it works. Mirror magic is brutal to those who carry rot inside them. It doesn't project power, it amplifies reality. And their reality was dark, twisted, unforgiving. Every ritual didn't weaken you, it cracked them further. They watched their own face twist in the mirror and didn't recognize it. That's not a spell, that's karma wearing lipstick. Those candles, they thought they were sealing your fate. But fire doesn't follow hatred, fire purifies. When lit with malicious intent, lost their power. It doesn't strike the innocent, it burns the hands of the one holding the match. While they tried to burn your name, they quietly melted their own defenses, torching their spiritual insulation. Each flame, each whispered curse was one more hole in their already fractured armor. But the unraveling didn't stop there. As they crumbled spiritually, the real world caught up. Investigators started digging and found not just petty fraud, but a full-blown operationing force. 6. When family turns into foes. The deepest cuts aren't from strangers, they're from the hands that once tucked you in. Chosen one, you're not just a player. This was the betrayal that hit harder than the resting the discovery that it wasn't just outsiders plotting your downfall, but family. The very people who were supposed to be your foundation, your protection, your last line of safety. That realization doesn't just sting. It breaks something because betrayal from strangers is survivable. But betrayal from blood changes how you breathe. You didn't just lose trust, you lost home. As the layers of lies peeled back, it became clear this wasn't just gossip or miscommunication. This was calculated treachery. Some handed over your secrets like currency. Your fears, your breakdowns, your moments of weakness. They delivered them like gifts to your enemies, hoping to buy favor, validation, or a front row seat to your collapse. Some, adoptive, step, or biological, never truly accepted you. You were too real, too bright, too different. So when the wolves came knocking, they opened the door. You're not just a player. They didn't stab you in the back. They held the blade in plain sight and called it love. What's worse? Some were born from the same bloodline. The ones who should have been your shelter became spies, trading your peace for whispers and social currency. Just a player. Selling your trust to people who never deserved your name in their mouths. That kind of betrayal doesn't just hurt, it shakes identity. It makes you question if love was ever real, makes you revisit every memory to see what was fake. How do you recover? How do you trust again? You don't rebuild trust in them. You build truth in yourself. You realize that blood is biology, but loyalty is earned. In this storm, your soul learned to walk without hand-holding. Their exit. Brutal. 7. They mocked what they couldn't see. They called on darkness, but you were light. They tried to hex what was already protected. That's not power. That's stupidity wrapped in incense smoke. They thought they were clever. Thought their rituals, curses, or energetic darts would quietly erode you from within. From the outside, it looked like you were vulnerable. But inside, you were fortified. Not by superstition, not by revenge, but by the pure alignment of heart and purpose. While they played with shadows, you walked in your truth. And truth is the one vibration that darkness can never touch. If this message resonated, if you're ready to embrace your power and stand firm in your truth, then let's build this movement together. Your support helps amplify these vital truths to more souls who need to hear them. Consider becoming a channel member to join our inner circle and unlock exclusive content, or simply fuel our mission with a one-time contribution on Buy Me a Coffee. Every bit helps us shine a light in the darkest places. Find the links below. Thank you for being a part of this force.